Hey, everybody, and welcome to Ben and Nate's Questions That We Ask People on the Internet, episode 23. I'm Nate Fay. I am one half of your co host. I'm a licensed massage therapist here in New England, an osteopath, and when I'm not in the trenches in my practice, I'm on the road teaching for Eric Dalton myoskeletal alignment techniques.
Oh, and I'm the other half of your host. My name is Ben Stone, and I am a licensed massage therapist in the state of Nebraska. And I've been doing massage things for the last 20 plus years. And I just enjoy getting together with Nate and talking shop with Nate and creating this show for you guys. What do you say, Nate?
I say, I love doing this, man. We've been doing this now. We're going to record our 23rd episode tonight. We took a few weeks off because, summer's here. I went to a country music concert on Saturday, and I'm not a big country music fan, but country music told me for 3 hours straight about summertime. Go to Mexico, drink a beer, ride your tractor. So I decided to do that for a few weeks, and now we're going to get back to the podcast.
I love it. And what I like about this podcast, and some of you listeners may or may not know, but we don't answer to anyone but ourselves. We don't answer to the man. We get to do what we want to do when we want to do it. We have no sponsors yet.
Card on tables. I'm looking at you.
Yeah, we might be. What was that? Dermafreeze and cryoabrasion something or other.
And massage periodicals.
Yeah, that's in the works. We're still working on that. But I just love, when you're at a multi-therapist office, and I remember when I had this a few years ago, you could stop and talk to people every once in a while about, hey, let me vent to you about this. Let me talk to you about this idea. I don't have that as much anymore. And so Nate is one of those channels that I get to talk to these types of things and just talk about it with him. And I love that aspect of this show. And so you guys get to kind of eavesdrop on what we talk about and, give us your feedback, comments, all that kind of stuff, because we love it.
Everything that you just said, Ben, I had a really good conversation with one of my clients today. I'm just going to derail us just for like a minute, if that's okay.
Go for it.
So, my patients are cool and they always are asking me about the industry and everything, like going out on the road teaching and all this kind of stuff. So my client was asking me today, well, she's like, what does it take to like really make it in the massage world? And I don't know if that's an individualized experience, but, I kind of I was telling her about my path, how I used to go to networking meetings. I gave up every Thursday morning at 7 a.m. to go to networking meetings. And I went out and I got coaching and I paid for mentorships. And I actually still get mentored today by our one and only massage mentor, Diane Mikowski, shout out. And, and I was like thinking about our podcast, man. And I'm like, this is kind of like us also just getting our experience out there. And for those that want to listen, like you said, and I hope that they take a nugget from these episodes and our 40 years of combined experience helps them too.
Yeah. Back when I started and probably the internet wasn't really a big thing. And I didn't know, where do you go? Where do you go to get mentorship, guidance? I didn't have any of that. So I kind of learned on my own. I learned by doing the wrong things. I learned by doing the right things. And just to throw this out, Nate and I both do mentoring programs. So if you are interested in, just a couple of meetings with us or whatnot, feel free to give us a shout out because we would love to share what we know. One of the things that I see a lot of kind of through the social media is people who are advertising their program. And if you're not doing this program, you're wrong and you're not doing the right thing. And, I know Nate's kind of similar to me. I'm not big into that. Let's find what works for you. And if I can't help you find that, let's find you someone else that can. I don't have that big of an ego that I feel like I know everything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and social media is a weird space, and I kind of like, and I think about that last point that you just said, Ben, that 20 years ago, man, it was just like we had to just make mistakes all the time, right, in our practice, right? That's why they call it practice, and our resources were, I didn't have anyone to call, And social media, I think for younger therapists, it's always a good and a bad thing. But I think one of the flaws with it is that all these people putting out videos, right? The know it all, the end all of like a technique or the way they package things. I think it's like a little scary. I think it's a little scary for massage therapists to sort of take this stuff as gold because that's only going to perpetuate mistakes too. So I like what you said. I always say it to my clients too, man. I'm not for everybody, and everybody's not for me. But don't get caught up in the flashy packages.
Yeah. It's you could make a mistake by hiring someone off the internet and you find out, hey, this person's not for me. And that's how you learn too. That's another way you learn.
Presentation. I think this is just we're gonna just derail from our podcast tonight. That's
Love
okay.
it. Let's do it.
Presentation's an interesting thing, right? And for me, what's worked for me a long time ago. I mean, I'm self-employed, but I have a uniform that I go to work in every day, right? It's got my name on it in case I forget. I'm at that age where I'm kind of forgetting stuff.
Yeah.
I wear my black scrub pants, and that's like, I have like 7 of these outfits. So it makes me not question what to wear, right? That's like your presentation. And when I started learning the seminar business from, and I really credit like Kim Miller with this stuff, man. Kim Miller taught me everything I know about the seminar business. And presentation was always huge for her. And I used to think she was like a little neurotic with like how she set things up and organized things. But I was like, no, this is like really important to have it this way because looks are everything. And I love when people come to our classes and they always tell me like, man, I go to classes and like your layout is just so professional looking, everything from the handouts to our tables, to our tablecloth, so on and so forth. Right. That's like pretty cool that people just catch on to that. And it was interesting because about a month ago, I saw one of these influencers, if you will, that sell very expensive packages and make the promise of like you're going to make like $300,000 a year as a massage therapist. And like her banners were wrinkled and kind of crooked. And I know that sounds a little nitpicky, but I was like, man, would you pay her like $3,000 when like the banner's crooked and wrinkled? I don't know. Is that too much or do you get it?
I love it. I love it because also I think that can be something you take into a massage room. Not just the seminar industry, but look at
Yeah.
when people come in to see your massage room. Does it look put together? How many times I was just thinking about this today because I bought a new face cradle pillow for my table. I update those about once every 2 years,
Yeah.
just because they wear out. When's the last time? Now, this is a little tip for you people at home. When's the last time you've laid down on your table, tested everything, how it feels? Because what I really hate is when I go get a massage and that face cradle pillow is like rock hard, never been changed, original to the table. It's like, come on, spend $50, spend $100, get a new, you know, it's part of maintenance, part of upkeep. All those things, clean your room, dust your room. All those little things matter in a client's eyes.
The same client that I had this cool conversation with me, she said to me today, she says, you reinvent yourself constantly. And, doing this for 20 years and the reinventing comes from just that. Reinventing sometimes just means going to Costco and buying the 20 pack of the white towels because your other towels are looking ratty. People notice that, or the face cradle. I love what you said about laying on your own table. If you're listening to this, lay on your table for like 5 minutes, and you might shock yourself, right? How that feels.
Yeah, it helps you to know how to adjust that face cradle thing up or down. Some of them have those bars that people always get their chins, you know. I,
Right.
I lay on your table, get to know how to adjust it to help your people. Yeah, we we could have a whole episode on that,
We
huh?
can. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Well, y'all can tell that Ben and I haven't talked in about a month, so we're pretty revved up here.
Yeah,
and it's good.
the passion just oozes from us, and it doesn't
Oozes.
matter what a little thing like getting new towels for our bathroom. I mean, look at what we're doing.
My office is in a building that was built in circa 1880, 1890. So it's old, right? And
Yeah,
it's, foundation, and it's an old brick building. And that's actually what appealed me to move my office. I always like the look of this. And, the floors are a little, and the walls are a little, but it kind of has like a different appeal to it. But sometimes it's because that I'll come in and my pictures are going this way.
yeah,
But but I pay attention to it. So every day I come in and I'm like, okay, fix it, fix it. Yeah. Anyway,
fantastic.
hey, Ben, welcome to episode 23. We ask people questions on the internet. And we had a question from several weeks ago that we didn't address. And why don't you read that question off to our viewers?
Yeah, I want to bring us in with a little bit of a humorous story, joke. How about a joke? Call it a joke. All right.
I haven't heard a good joke today.
Yeah. So a blonde walks into a library and she walks up to the librarian and she says, "Hi, I'd like to buy some milk, some bread, and some eggs." And the librarian looks at her and says, I'm sorry, ma'am, but this is a library." And the blonde says, "Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I'd like to buy some milk, some bread, and some eggs."
Hey, Ben, I think we just got canceled.
Well, now there's a reason I brought this one up because we're going to
Go
talk
for it.
about policies today. I think that was the
Okay,
question.
it
Um,
was.
what policies do we think are important to have in our business and how do we enforce them? And so there
Mhm.
are policies that are written and unwritten, and libraries have a policy. You stay quiet in the that's part of the joke, the library
That's
joke.
right.
But it's looking at policies and the written versus unwritten policies, and we're going to get into all of that today. But we had this question out there, and the thing that I like to ask you, is there any particular reason that you wanted to bring up the subject of policies this episode?
Well, policies are a heck of a thing. And I think I talked about this a while back that I've taken a page out of my son's orthodontist and all of their policies and how they present things right down to a new patient, to reminders, to their cancellation policy. And I've learned a lot from them. And it's something that massage therapists talk about. I kind of wonder how we enforce them and how people enforce them. The most common question I think I see in the big massage therapy groups is like cancellation policies. But there's more than that. There should be more than that. And I think we can have a nice talk tonight about diving into the all too common policies and then maybe some of the not so common policies that we use.
Yeah, well, let's get into it. I want to ask you, why are policies important?
I think that I think policy is important for a lot of reasons, right? I mean, from the first phone call to how, right, managing a client from the beginning, right? Because there's a management aspect to people that we work with, right? To humans. And having policies in place from the very beginning sets a tone, right? And I'm going to just kind of deviate for a second. My son joined football this year, and this is his first time playing. And let me tell you, the policies and procedures that this coach put into place in black and white left no questions asked of how he wants to run his football team, right? If you can't make a practice, how much notice he wants. If a practice starts at 3, he wants you there at 2:15, dressed and ready to go. Every kid has a job. Show up to all practices unless you're deathly ill or you won't play. And nobody talks negatively about their teammates. I mean, that was cut and dry. And let me tell you, watching these kids a week and a half in, none of that stuff is occurring on that football team. And right, the same for us. If we start that management process of our expectations right from the beginning, right, it could be, I know this isn't necessarily a policy, right, but everything from directions and parking to how I want you to enter my office, right? Meaning, like, where's the door? How should you come in? What should you do when you come in and nobody's there to greet you, right? I want you to have a seat in the chair, right? Until I'm out to greet you. That sets a tone. And then certainly up front, your prices are verbally stated and then sent out in black and white into an email. And then, of course, your cancellation policy and your expectations of that.
Yeah, how many times in the past have we talked about managing expectations and how that actually influences the efficacy of what we do? I mean,
Yeah.
if we have everything in place, if people understand what's going to happen before they even get there, that lowers their anxiety level, makes them more comfortable, does all of those things to manage their appointment before we have even said hello to them. I
Absolutely.
mean, the example that I can think of is a restaurant, a sit down restaurant. You show up, you expect, now this it's not a written policy, but you expect someone to either greet you and take you to your seat, or you see a big sign that says, please seat yourself. So what
Right.
happens when there's no one to greet you and there's no sign? You stand there and you look around and
Mhm.
you wait for some sort of sign or signal. Am I supposed to seat myself or is someone going to come find, you that it's not a huge anxiety creator, but there's a little bit of anxiety there when you don't know what to expect. Same thing in a massage room. When someone shows up to your office, doesn't know what to expect, what happens?
Yeah.
They look like a
They
deer
start
in headlights. They don't know
they
what
start
to do.
they start pacing up and down your hallway. Perhaps you're running a little bit late and you're still in session, or maybe you're on a phone call. And maybe if you have I have an office room, and the once in a blue moon that happens in my office, and I say once in a blue moon, like once a year, if that. And I know that somebody didn't listen to me, and I know that they didn't read my email, but they walk in and they start pacing the hallway like a deer in headlights, right? We
That's
don't want that to
interesting.
happen.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. I want to ask you that next question is how do you get the word out for how do you share your policies to people? I mean, you just mentioned email,
Yeah.
and what are some other ways? What are some effective ways to share your policies?
So I think for me, I've got a total of 4 ways that I do it. So I always say the first phone call, everything's verbally stated, right down to my cancellation policy. And here's the reality: I am truly, I always tell people I'm not a stickler. I just want 48 hours or more notice. And I know we're going to talk about cancellation policies, but this plays into what you said.
Yeah.
And with that being said, um, if you have to cancel or reschedule, 48 hours or more goes a long way with me. But here's part of my policy: if it happens to be under 24 hours, I may not charge you, but I can't promise that I'll rebook you. Okay. So that's just one of my policies, and I'm stating this for a reason. So that's verbally said to them. Everything is scripted out at that first phone call. And then I have everything into an email. So as soon as I disconnect that phone, I press send on my computer, and everything from directions, parking, how to enter my office, what to do if I'm not out to greet you, to my cancellation policy, to my fees, what to bring to wear for your treatment portion, and so on and so on. And then this was the page out of my son's orthodontist. Then they get a text message to their phone with their appointment time, cancellation policy. Please bring gym shorts, tank top. And then 2 days before their appointment, they get that reminder again.
And is that all automated through your system?
That latter half is automated. Correct. The text
Yeah.
messages are automated. The email, I press a button. So yes, it's for the most part automated.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, since I switched over to that I've lost track of time, 3 years ago, my cancellation rate, not that it was ever high, it was probably, it's not even a statistic. Now my cancellation rate is practically zero. unless somebody's really sick or there's an emergency. And 99.9% of the time, I get 48 hours plus notice. I actually get week notices now, and that never used to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's move into that. Let's talk about some of the policies that seem to be more popular or important. And I think definitely we should probably talk about cancellation policies. So tell me
That's
a little
that's
bit about that.
that seems to be, I think, the number one question that we see on all the big groups. I mean, if you open up any Facebook page, the number one question I see probably on a weekly basis is like, cancellation policies. And you and I have talked about this before, but sometimes there's recurring themes with us. One of the
Always
questions,
recurring themes with
always,
us.
I always ask the question in my classes, do you give exercises or stretches to your clients? And everybody raises their hand. And then I ask the question, how many of your clients follow through? And everybody smiles and puts their hands down. And then I ask them the question, whose fault is it? And I asked the same question, on our podcast today. If you have a high cancellation rate or people taking advantage of you, whose fault is it? Is it your fault, the business owner, or is it the patient? And we all know there's some bad eggs out there in terms of patients. We all know that there's people out there that are going to try to take advantage of you. And one of the beauties about our experiences, mentorships, coaching, all the time that people like us have spent, you've learned how to weed those things out, but that's another podcast. So cancellation policies, right? I'm going to reverse Uno card you on that one because I feel like I've been talking forever here because I'm all coffeeed up. I want you to talk about your cancellation policies and your thoughts on that.
As I listen to you talk, I don't think it matters what your cancellation policy is. I think it matters that you have one. I have one, and I make sure people know about it. And we could go down that road of what do you
Mm-hmm.
do when someone calls? Because how do I know I'm going to be sick the morning of my appointment? I don't know. And
Yeah.
then we could talk about what do you do. But I think we're going to talk a little bit more about enforcing policies here in a little bit. But I think the
Right.
most important thing, well, the important thing is number one, to have a policy. And then we're going to get into the step two of importance is enforcing that policy. But I mean, really, having that policy and letting people know it's in my emails. I talk to, just like you, I talk to people about it. I have a sign on my wall. And if someone says, oh, I didn't know about that policy, well, sorry you didn't know, but here's the policy, you know.
Right.
That's kind of, I don't I don't think that it's important because hear people, oh, what's your policy? Is it 24 hours, 48 hours? But it doesn't matter what your policy is. You pick what's comfortable for you, and
Absolutely.
and then it's up to you to enforce that policy.
Yeah. And I would probably, Ben, and again, there's so many different scenarios about this that we could talk about, and I don't want to spend our whole time talking about it because I agree with you wholeheartedly, right? Do you charge somebody? And, we could ping pong it back to our listeners and say, that's up to you. Do I want to charge the client that's been coming to see me for 20 years and calls me up that morning and sounds like death on the phone, right? I'm not going to do that because I have to ask myself, do I want to lose this client, or am I just going to see him again in a couple weeks, right? So those are things to think about. And anyway, we know the drill. If you want to charge your clients, charge your clients, but I will bet money on this that if those of you listening put something into place and make it crystal clear, you won't even have this conversation anymore. I guarantee it.
Just like you said, I have not had a client that I've had for several years that has called me the morning of and they are sick. They don't say, they don't ask for forgiveness. They just say, I'll pay you when I'm feeling well enough, or I will pay your
Get you next
cancellation
time.
fee. They
Yeah.
don't, there's not even a question. They just do it.
I
And
love
those are
that
the
too.
people that, I mean, I will do extra things for them because they don't even question it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And those clients are awesome too. The ones that you've trained that well, right?
Yeah.
Huge. Love that. Okay, so cancellation policies.
Yeah, what are some other policies that are somewhat important or necessary in our profession?
You know, would informed consent in a sense fall under a policy?
I think it's a
Mm.
part of a procedure on the end of a therapist.
I,
I think it's important.
I think it is important. And I state that on my intakes, what people can expect, that it's hands-on therapeutic touch and that we're going to be working together as a team. And some techniques may elicit this response, so on and so forth. And then certainly we're not medical doctors. So at the end of the day, please refer to your medical doctor for any medical advice, right? Some simple things of that as that. And I think most massage therapists probably have that. But what about informed consent as a policy or procedure during a session? Right?
Yeah,
Like I like this one. I read this a long time ago and I've adopted this. Because there's like a few different ways like we can do a technique. So sometimes I'll go into a technique one way and I'll ask the client about it. How does that feel for you? And then I go into it a different way and I say, what do you prefer? What feels more therapeutically valuable for you? And I think that falls under informed consent.
yeah, it's definitely part of informed consent, but I think it's also part of a treatment approach. That
Absolutely.
that shared treatment approach that we talk about all the time. That
Yeah.
I think that's helpful to involve your client in the treatment process and sharing that treatment.
So with that being said, some massage therapists might have a policy of like your library joke earlier. My policy is to keep our sessions quiet, nonverbal.
For sure. Yeah. And some of those are even they're kind of unwritten policies. Like, you know, I hear this a lot of times that I got taught in massage school that you don't talk unless the client talks to you. I mean, I think that's the biggest load of garbage ever, but some people abide by that rule. And, I've come across clients who come in, they say, well, all that stuff that you ask me to do, the movement and all that stuff, I don't want to do that today. I just want to relax, and that
Yeah.
doesn't happen to me very often, but it's happened before in the past. And like, okay, we'll not make you do all those things. I won't make you do any movements, that kind of thing.
And by the way, that was probably one of the worst things taught in massage school. I went around for about 2 years thinking that if I uttered a word that I would explode,
Yeah.
that the massage police would come knocking on the door.
Yeah, you don't want to ruin the relaxation effects of massage by talking to somebody. How terrible.
I know, right? Good lord. Meanwhile, your client's on the table.
Yeah, exactly.
I wish they would ask me how this feels.
It's one of the great reasons for constantly staying in communication with your client. But what are some other important policies? So I have a policy that I don't necessarily verbally tell people this, but I have it written in my intake and on my wall. And I have one about using cell phones and other stuff while they're in the room. Have you ever
Yeah,
come
that's a great
across
one.
people who just cannot put it down?
I've never come across anyone that can't put it down, luckily. But I do ask people to silence their cell phone. And I'm just going to add this one in too because I think this goes hand in hand, and to remove all jewelry, what Apple watches, earrings, things like that.
Yeah,
So that's part of my policy is just please, because there's sometimes not, right, body works, you're kind of like in a good rhythm, and sometimes there's like these nonverbal moments that happen and you're like in a good groove I have this guy that comes to my office. He's awesome. Greek guy. And he's super cool. Was a restaurateur his whole life, restaurant owner. And he has that traditional Greek song that plays when his phone rings. I don't know the song, but I mean you know the song, right? It's like the most traditional song ever. And man, he's got his phone cranked up to like 20. And him and I typically have nonverbal sessions, and like we're in like a good rhythm, and it's like and it's just, I'm like
Nice.
so yeah, a
Nice.
policy of silence your cell phones. But it sounds like you've come across clients that are getting on their phone while you're working on them.
Oh, yeah, I had an experience where, somebody came in and she said, "Hey, I just came from work. I really need to finish this email to my team." And I was like, "All right, we can wait. I mean, we'll just have to shorten your session." She's like, "No, you can work on me while I do it. It'll only take a couple minutes." And uh, I reluctantly agreed, and you learn the hard way doing these things.
I know.
And she didn't put the thing down, and at one point I said, we can get a lot more done if you put that thing down. And she
Yeah.
just kept saying, "Oh, I'm almost done, I'm almost done." And she was not invited back because it's just,
Yeah.
how do
That's
you,
wild, man. That's
yeah.
wild. You jarred my memory a little bit. I did have somebody one time that came in, and I get it. Like people come from work and they're frazzled and and she came in, she entered my treatment room and she was going for it. And I just simply said, I'll give you all the time you need. I'll be up on my office. Come get me when you're ready for your session. And then she came up 5 minutes later. I never said anything about, like, I just said, come get me when you're done. And, it was a few minutes later and I came back. And again, she's a regular client. So this was more of like a fluke. However, I've had clients, and this is like amazing to me, right? When you think about this part of it, then there's the other side of the coin when it comes to cell phones. I've had clients that come in and they're like, hey, like my mom had a heart attack this morning and I'm just going to keep my phone on by me. Is that okay? They ask me, is that okay? And then I'm like, listen, I'm not going to charge you. Like, if you need to go be with your mom, like, go be with your mom. And they're like, no, no, and it's kind of like a cool thing, right? They want to be there. So I'm like, oh, yeah, like, totally. If your phone rings, like, we'll pause so there's certainly extenuating circumstances. And I'm a single parent. And on days that I'm responsible for my son, if there's something, happening, and then this has happened before, I'll say to my clients, hey, my son's having a little issue at school. I'm gonna have to keep my phone on during our session today, and I won't charge you like the full session fee if we get interrupted for a few minutes. Again, a very rare thing. It's probably happened 2 or 3 times in my career, but that comes up as well. But the blatant uh, coming in and having a meeting that's pretty wild.
Yeah. But you think about it, we manage expectations, we come up with these policies, but they're always, we can modify them. And that
Yeah,
goes back to informed consent again. Hey, I'm having an issue at home. I need to leave my phone on. Is that going to be okay with you? And then they have the opportunity to say, "Yeah, that's okay," or "No, I don't, that's not going to work for me today."
yeah,
And you either agree or disagree on what's going to happen, and then you make your adjustments and say, "Okay, we'll meet next time," or
absolutely,
we'll do whatever we need to do to resolve this. So
absolutely.
that's the type of informed consent right there.
Yeah, it sure is. And then certainly along the lines of this kind of fell into I we brought up like the jewelry thing kind of in the same token as cell phones. What your clients should expect, what's your policy on draping, or do you work on your clients' clothes, and what's your expectations of what they wear for their therapy sessions or not wear? And what's their expectations? And this also falls under informed consent, especially if you're doing draped work. So that can go a few different ways as well.
So it seems like a lot of policies and procedures have been put in place because someone encountered an issue at some point. and
Right.
they don't want to encounter it again. And so you let people know, hey, this is what's okay in my office. This is what's not okay in my office. If you're good with that, we're going to have a great relationship. If you're not good with that, we're probably not going to be good working with each other.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I also have a policy for inclement weather because we have tornadoes here that hit within, they could hit within hours or even minutes. We have hail, we have all kinds of stuff that just pops up out of nowhere. And if we have an appointment, I don't want someone driving through a tornado to get to their appointment. But yet, what do? I didn't get 24-hour notice or 48-hour notice. So I do have a policy that, I don't want anyone to put snow, that's a big thing out in the East, if,
Mhm.
if there's 3 feet of snow, how do you deal with that? So I had to come up with an inclement weather policy.
Absolutely. We don't, where I live in Connecticut, it just, it's not like a thing anymore. We don't seem to get the snow that we used to get when I was younger or was a kid growing up. I think I've only actually had to close my office one time in 10 years due to a blizzard, which is pretty impressive. And I get some real loyal clients that they're like, I have a truck and I'll come anyway. And back in the day, I used to do that, but then I kind of thought about it in my older years. I thought, man, if that person gets into an accident or gets towed or ticketed or God forbid something happens, that falls on me. Or my parking lot, now the plow guys can't get into the parking lot. So now I do have a firm policy, even though we don't get snow. We certainly don't get tornadoes. Of course, I say that we're going to get a tornado tomorrow, right? Woo. But I certainly say that yes, the office will be closed for inclement weather. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, what about, it's the question I wanted to ask. You wanted to go into the next one is enforcing these policies. It's awesome to have all these policies, but they don't mean diddly if we can't enforce them. So talk to me
Yeah,
about enforcing policies.
it can be hard. And again, another recurring theme that we've talked about is the average massage therapist. Certainly me. I think you too. I don't have a front desk person to be the bad guy. So I'm the front desk person. I'm the therapist. I'm the janitor. We're everybody, right?
Yeah.
And so it can be pretty hard to have a potentially confrontational, even if it's a one on the scale of a 1 to 10 of a some sort of confrontation, and then you've got to bring them back and comfortably help them with their low back pain. It's a pretty interesting thing to have to do that,
Who
right?
likes drama and who wants to deal with drama? Not very many people do.
Not too many people do, especially when you're in a pretty small treatment room, right? For an hour.
Yeah.
We certainly don't want that. Again, how do you enforce them? I can only go back to what we talked about earlier. These steps of the verbal, the email, the multiple text messages starts to leave no stone unturned, right? When it comes to your cancellation policy, you have to make that decision, and again, like you said earlier, Ben, if your policies are crystal clear, you're going to get clients that are just going to say to you, hey, I'm going to pay you today. I can't make it. And it leaves that drama away, right? But here's an interesting policy that I actually have to deal with in my office. This is going to sound kind of weird. So I work on my clients' clothes, and I spell this stuff out: shorts, gym shorts for my male clients, shorts tank top or shorts sports top for my female clients. But I also put in there, depending on the issue, we may work with draping. And I have a few clients that actually tell me to my face. They come in long sleeves and long pants. I have one woman that comes in a turtleneck and her neck hurts her, right? So this takes away from a lot of our techniques that I particularly perform. And it's like frustrating. So I have to ask myself the question, do I want to lose this long term client that I do like And then I know I'm helping, but it's like frustrating to me right when they come in. So how do I enforce that? So the conversation is after the session. I don't like to do these things before, and I don't like to do them in the treatment room. So when we go back out to my office to pay, rebook, I simply say to them, listen, I know that you come in a turtleneck and you want neck work and everything, and I'm happy to work with you, and I'm happy to work on you. But we're detracting from a lot of the therapy that I perform here, and it's taking away from a lot of the work that we can do here and the way that I can help you. So, unless there's a reason that I need to know why you won't wear a tank top or even a t-shirt, right? Please let me know now, right? Because if it's an issue that I don't understand, maybe it's a religious issue or something, let's get it out in the open. And they're like, oh no, I just never, like, I don't own a tank top. They say that to me, right? So those are a couple things that I've had to like sit down and talk to a couple of my clients about.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing from you is to not avoid the issue, but talk about it, number one. Get it out in the
Yeah.
open and find out, hey, they're not purposely trying to push your button. It's just, hey, I don't have that stuff. I can't comply with what you're asking.
Right.
Help me find a
Help me.
solution.
Absolutely. And like you said, they're not doing it to push my buttons. But then if we let it go, oh man, I'm seeing this person again this week. Uh, I'm not looking forward to it. You get bummed out, you get a little bitter about it, you get a little, angry about it, and that starts to come across in the session.
It turns into the story you tell yourself in your head. If you
Right.
don't talk about it with them, now you're saying, oh, they're just doing this to spite me. Which is totally not the case, but that's what could leak into your head, and now that festers, and you're like, oh, so and so is coming in again just to spite me. Boy, I'm gonna really give it to her this time. And no communication has taken place to take care of this. And what do I always like to say? The hardest part of communication is the assumption that has taken place. I have
Right.
I have conversations in my head with people all the time that never happen, but I'm like, okay, if this conversation goes this way, this is what I'm going to say. If this conversation goes this way, this is what I'm a little mental sometimes, but
Right.
none of those conversations really actually ever happen because I talk to somebody and it goes a completely different way than I thought, and it's just fine.
So we've made up all those stories in our head. We're getting angry. We're getting uncomfortable about seeing this client. And they're a great client, right? At the end of the
Yeah.
day, our good friend Diane says, "Bless them, change me."
Yeah.
It's a piece of advice I've been trying to take, for a while.
I love that.
I
One
like
one
that
of the things
too.
I think about when having to deal with policies, the policies are written out, black and white, right? How do we remove ourselves from the emotion that we're feeling when and in that moment that we have to deal with that policy? So say, cancellation policy or payments due, that kind of thing. I've heard of therapists who don't take payment at the time of service, and then someone gets two or three payments behind, and now what do you do?
Right.
How do you remove yourself from that emotion, make it about black and white? This is what the policy is. This is what we are going to agree on today. You can either we can either make an agreement to do this together, or we're not going to make an agreement and we're going to have to decide what to do after that. Whether it means, uh, whether we're no longer going to be, doing business together, whatever it means. But I think it's hard sometimes to remove that emotion and just make it about black and white. Putting it on sometimes I've had to do that. I have had to, because I didn't want to enforce the cancellation policy. So I forced myself. I brought the paper up right in front of me and I said, okay. And I read directly off of the paper and I said, this is what my cancellation policy, this is what it says. This is what I can do.
I think if we do these again, if it's spelled out, if it's written out, and we do these things in a calm manner, I think keeping it out of the treatment room, I like after a session, right? After a session, like, let's listen, man, you've been canceling a lot of appointments on me last minute, that sort of thing. This is my policy, and then execute it from there. So here's a policy we're going to talk about. Late. You are
That's a
late.
good one.
You are late.
That's a good one. How do you deal with people who are late? What's your late policy?
I got a 15-minute rule.
Okay.
I got a 15-minute rule. And my 15-minute rule is, the bottom line is that if you're more than 15 minutes late, then, I have the right to not be able to see you that visit, and you will be charged for that visit. So it kind of falls into a cancellation policy a little bit. And there's always, again, right, we're always going to have like some exceptions to the rule here and there. I have some clients that run a few minutes late here and there. It's pretty under the radar that you don't really notice it. Again, happens infrequently for me personally. But I had a guy, actually, this just happened on Friday. Longtime client, right? Has the reminders, has everything, has the appointment time in his email. And it was 20 minutes after his appointment. This guy is never late. And I called him and he says, "Oh, I'm in your parking lot." He goes, "I'm in your parking lot right now for my 4:30 appointment." Well, his appointment was at 4. And he's a great guy, right? He and his wife have been seeing me forever. So he goes, "Oh, I'll come in right now." And he says, "I'm really sorry." He goes, "But you can still work on me until 5:30. So it was kind of a weird thing coming from him. He actually just told me straight out. He goes, "Yeah, you're going to work on me till 5:30. But I don't think he meant it in a nefarious way. I don't think he had intent behind it. I think he just sort of was like, "Here I am. Our session will go to 5:30. And I was like, "Gee, mister." No, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
But I said, our appointment time was at 4 tonight. And I said, "I'm still happy to work on you." I said, "But, my day does end at 5 today. And we will have to stop our session at 5. And, that's going to be how it's going to be." And he says, "Oh, yeah, totally." He goes, "I'm really sorry about that." He goes, "I really thought it was at 4:30. And I said, "Well, I've been seeing you for a long time." I said, and I almost play stupid. I said, "Do you get those text reminders to your phone?" I said, "Are those coming through okay?" And he says, "Yeah, they come through." He goes, "I don't always read them," because he goes, like, "I know I have an appointment." And I said, "Well, yeah, just take like the second to give it a read." And it was not uncomfortable. It was totally cool. I worked on him until our session time was over, and I had to move on. Didn't hesitate to pay me my session fee, and off he went.
Yeah. So, in those situations, I'm reminded of some ways to deal with that. And the first one is you state the facts, right? Fact
Right.
is, your appointment was at 4 o'clock. You mean that is a fact. You can pull it up, show him whatever you need to do. It's a fact. There's no disputing. It's not, well, I kind of feel like you should have been here. There's no feelings. It's just straight up fact. Then that person has the opportunity to give their side. Oh, I thought it was at 4:30. Then it's up to you to decide, okay, is this excuse legit? And in this case, there's not too much interpreting that you can do, but say we get some inappropriate behavior on the table, there could be facts and what somebody meant to do versus what they explained there, what's going on. That could get a little bit hazy, but you listen to the excuse, and then you make your decision what you're going to do. You make an agreement with that person. Hey, I know you thought your appointment was at 4:30. It was actually at 4. I can keep you until 5, and then we're going to be done. Does that sound okay to you? He has
Yeah.
the he can say, "Yeah, that's fine with me. I'm sorry, blah blah blah." Or, "No, I really want you to keep me till 5:30." And that's when you make those agreements and say, "Okay, we're going to agree to be done at 5, or we're just going to agree to be done forever, whatever you need to do, however you're going to,
Right.
end it." But that's kind of a quick and dirty way is you state the facts, you listen to their side of the story, decide if it's legit or not, and then make your agreements after that.
Yeah. And
How's that for a quick and dirty little formula.
I'll tell you, you had one thing in there that was a total gem that we haven't touched upon is stating it and asking the question back to them. How does that sound to you? Do you agree to that? And I love that. And even at the first session, after I check them out, and even though again they have everything, I remind them again my cancellation policy, that this policy, so that policy, and then I look at them and I said, "Can we agree to that? All that, and does that sound great to you moving forward?" Yes, it does, Nate. Excellent. I can't wait to see you again in a week or two. Right, getting them to verbally agree. People love the art of a verbal contract or a handshake or something like that, and you know,
It's
so yeah, I
that's
love
one of
that
the
you said
most
that.
important ones is that cancellation policy. And I do the same thing. I remind people, hey, I need I need this much notice if you're going to reschedule or cancel your appointment. I've got you down for the 4th of October. How does that sound?
Yeah.
That's great. I'll see you then. Perfect.
It sure is, and in all of this, Ben, running late, canceling our day, canceling an appointment last minute, the tables get turned. You ever have to cancel your day that morning?
Yeah, I've been sick
Less
before.
than 48 hours notice.
Darn right.
You wake up and you're like, well, I can't. I'm coughing up stuff,
Yeah,
or looks like I'm going to be in the bathroom today. That sort
yeah.
of thing. And right? So it works both ways. So sometimes that fundamental understanding of stuff happens.
And when we decide not to enforce a cancellation policy or any type of policy, what is that really doing to us? Because, potentially it's hurting our income. And, is the bank going to say, "Oh, it's okay. I know you had some cancellations this week. You don't have to pay your mortgage. That's okay. We'll give you a break on that."
Right.
Or, the electric company is not going to say, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I know business was a little slow for you and had some cancellations." Like that's not how it works. And so when you say yes to that, what are you saying no to in other things? And I know
Right.
you've heard that before. That whole saying is when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love it, buddy. Did we forget about any policies, and did we get any viewer responses? I know we did.
Did we?
We did. Our good friend Barb McKenney chimed in.
Yeah, tell me what Barb had to say.
Oh, let's see. Of course, I lost it. This is
Yeah.
going to be one of those.
Well, that's okay. We can while you're looking, I'll give us some filler. What did we talk about? We talked about why policies are important. We talked about how we share our policies. We talked about, enforcing policies and removing emotion from those equations, and how policies help manage expectations and can actually help with the therapeutic outcome of what we do. How's that
Absolutely.
for a good summary?
I love it. And I always get a verbal agreement. Our good friend Barb talked about cancellation policies, much of the stuff that we talked about. Is there anything that we left out tonight? If there is, by the way, if you have a policy that we didn't talk about, comment below and talk about that with us.
I'm sure there's a lot of policies that people have that have been created because of a reason. And
Mm,
there's no right or wrong. If you want to run your business the way you want to run your business, you do it. But you got to enforce those
absolutely.
policies.
That's right.
Just like
Get that.
Nate's son in that football team. They run a tight ship. And if you want your business to be a tight ship, you have policies and you enforce them.
That's right. And always be open to learning and take notes from that. I love going to different places and seeing something. And if I like it, I'm like, man, I'm going to start using that for my office for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I have several other policies that I have that are not really that important. Um, but they're things, and I don't think we need to spend time going over those too much.
Yeah, that's okay. I like it. I mean, it's your treatment room, and how you conduct business and how you want to have a successful business, I think comes down to having everything out there in the very beginning.
Well, tell me what's a big takeaway from what we talked about today, Nate?
Man, I just love it was right at the very end when we just kind of when you touched on just getting that verbal agreement back to them and phrasing those questions. How to phrase those questions back to the client to get them to agree to it. You've stated it, you read it back to them, they said yes. You understand that? They said yes, and then you can just move on. And don't get caught up in your own head, right? Don't get caught up in your own head that your clients have bad intentions towards you by doing something that you don't like. They probably don't mean anything by it at all. And sometimes it just means a quick conversation to clear the air, right?
Yeah, who hasn't had a busy day and had some kind of something happen in their day that just throws you through a loop and you're not thinking about something? I mean, happens to the best of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We didn't talk about it. And I'm not going to extend this episode another 15 minutes, but this did just come to me, and I think we should just talk about it for a minute.
Yeah.
In the world of how people can contact us now, the phone call, the email, a text message, a Facebook or an Instagram message, WhatsApp, whatever app you use, clients have about at hand 4 different ways to contact you: phone call, email, text message, message through a social media service. All right. And we won't get into the history of the telephone. Who invented the telephone anyway?
Was that Mr. Alexander Graham Bell?
I believe so. Right. So that was like a thing. And then emails were a huge thing forever.
Who invented emails?
I don't know.
I don't either.
Oh, bummer. If you know who invented emails, comment below. And then people are getting tired of emails. Nobody emails and nobody calls anymore. Nobody emails anymore. Text messages are sort of the way. So I get confused because I have a variety of ages that come into my office. And I have some people that do the phone call. I have some people that love email. And I have some people that love to text me. And then I have a couple clients that have been seeing me forever. And this is your own thing. I know you can have your policies about your social media pages, because that's a policy we actually didn't touch on.
No.
But that's like a whole nother thing now, too. But I do have clients on my Facebook friends list. And sometimes they Facebook message me, "Hey, Nate, I have to change my appointment next Wednesday." And the part that gets confusing for me, Ben, is if this accumulates over the weekend where I try not to do business, and now I've got to remember who texted me, who emailed me, who Facebook messaged me, and try to like put that together in my head Monday. And inevitably somebody can get lost in the shuffle. So I do have a policy that communication, especially when it comes to canceling or rescheduling, has to be done by a voicemail on my answering machine.
It's a good policy.
Unless it's a Monday, and if you're my Monday morning 9 a.m. client, yeah, please text me Sunday so I can not rush to my office for sure.
Yeah.
But everybody else, I want a voicemail, and that's that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought about that, and I've set up my own Google phone number, so it's separate from my personal phone number, so I can
Okay,
keep business and personal separate, which it still comes in on my phone, but my clients don't have my personal number. Like I could
got
drop
it.
that Google number at any time, and they wouldn't know how to contact me, which is
Yeah,
probably a whole nother episode we get into.
I think it is, but that's interesting. So if you're listening to this, then take a tip on that one. It's something that I don't do, but if you're look into that though. Yeah. Okay. Cool, Ben.
Well, Nate, let's tell people again. Let's tell them about the show, how the show works, and how they can interact and everything about the show.
Here's how the show works, ladies and gentlemen. Ben and I post a question once a week on the internet, and it's on our Facebook page, Ben and Nate's Questions That We Ask People on the Internet. So subscribe to those pages so that you're getting that news feed. So when you see those questions posted, you can respond to them. And then Ben and I record an episode just like we did tonight, and we talk about your answers, and then we formulate our own opinions on this stuff. So your answer could be featured on our show. And what's better than that?
We love to talk about people's answers. We love it when people let us know that they're listening. We just love to know that. I mean, I tell Nate this all the time. I don't care if anyone's listening. I just love talking to Nate. But if someone can get some sort of help or guidance through what we talk about because we have a little bit of experience, I feel that much better for what we're doing.
That's right. And you can listen to us on your rides to work on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you want to watch us, you can watch us on YouTube.
Yeah, and YouTube has a new podcast feature too. So we're available on YouTube podcasts, and don't ask me how it works yet, but I'll figure it out sooner or later.
Hey,
so
Ben,
look for us. If you can't find us, reach out to us and let us know. We'll help get you hooked up.
We'll do it. Hey, before we go, you told me before we started tonight you're going to be on the road with some educators. Tell us who you're going to be on the road with.
Going on the road. I'm going up the road to Omaha, which is about an hour away, to help with James Lazlowski, and that will be in a week or so. So this episode will probably be just being aired, and we love James Lazlowski. He's a big fan of the show. We're a big fan of him. In October, I'll be assisting with Eric Stevenson in Omaha, Nebraska. He's doing his brand of no thumbs deep tissue work, which, I mean, he really gets into not necessarily the techniques. I tell people this, everybody wants to learn techniques, but he gets more into just the communication part, which I think is so important, such an important part of the massage. And so I love what he shares. But I mean, it's such a fun weekend. It's probably one of the premier events in Nebraska. So I love going there. And I know you got some stuff coming up, Nate. Tell me where you're going to be in the next month or so.
I got a whirlwind coming up here, Ben. I'm hitting the road starting next week. I'm going to be in Albany, New York for the AMTA. 2 weeks after that, I'm going to be in Fraser, Pennsylvania, which is right outside of Philadelphia. So if this is before the 21st, I've got a few spots left. And then probably one of the biggest honors in my career, I'm going to be teaching at the Canadian Massage Conference in October with the CMC and those guys, Massage Therapy Media. And I can't wait to go to Burlington, Ontario. And I got asked to be the featured presenter, which is like crazy.
That's so cool. Awesome. I saw that and that just made me so happy because that
was one of these to me, man.
So cool, man. We love Scott Dartnell and all those guys. Yeah, it's just fantastic. Mark Chi,
Mark's a great guy, and of course 2 massage therapists and a podcast and a microphone. And then 2 weeks after that, at the end of October, we're going to finish up a tour in my home state of Connecticut. And then, of course, we'll be in Costa Rica in November for our annual Eric Dalton Pain in Paradise.
So if you're out there, a massage therapist, and have any desire to come hang out with us in any of those spots, feel free to reach out. We'll get you details on how to get hooked up with all these great venues.
Let's do it, baby. Hey, we'll see you guys for episode 24.
Can't wait. 24.
Bye-bye.